Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yugioh VRAINS episode review. This time we will be reviewing episode 19, the second part of the duel between Akira and Playmaker, and we finally got what we have wanted since before the show even started, really. What this incident was. Now, there are still some question marks left to be, I guess, answered and put in the sentence of, what happened exactly 10 years ago, but we got the gist of it. I'd say we got probably about 75-80% of it. The only factors we're missing is who was responsible for it and the purpose of the program, and I'd say that still comprises for a good amount of, where the show's going to go after this duel, and I'm kind of glad that they didn't give us that, because it still feels like this duel has a purpose to it. And I'm sure we're going to have to wait a couple episodes before we get those questions answered. But man, oh man, is it too crazy to say that Yusaku has the darkest and saddest backstory of any Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist? I don't think it is. I mean, Yusei's was pretty sad because he had his parents getting killed when he was at a very young age, and, he felt the guilt that for his dad causing the NRD to explode. But I feel like this is a lot. I feel like this is worse, to be honest. I feel like this is a little more intense of PTSD, and I'll get to that in the second half. And there was one part of this episode that even almost choked me up. I mean, they did a masterful job the second half of this episode with giving away the incident. I'm glad it was Yusaku who talked about the incident and not Akira. He told us, so he really didn't learn anything new in this episode, but he told us what he's known for the last 19 episodes that we all wish he told us from the very beginning, because it makes sense as to why he is the cold-hearted, very close to himself character that we see, and it's just very different. It's really completely unique for any kind of Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist to be like this and have this kind of personality. And personally, that's why I've liked it. I've liked the different spin on it. I've liked the unique take. And now that we know why he is the way he is, I feel like it's just kind of easier to understand him from a viewer. And he's not just cold to be cold. He's cold because he literally can't open up, and he has this horrible post-traumatic stress disorder from what happened 10 years ago, which I will get into later in the video, and I cannot wait, especially, to talk to you guys in the comment section down below. But the duel resumes, and Akira gets Tindangle Acute Cerebus onto the field, and what I immediately noticed, because I did a video talking about Cerebus, because it got released, and the effects got released, and we pretty much knew it was going to be Akira's ace, got released a few days ago in V-Jump, and the effects are pretty different than they are in the real world, which it happens more than you'd think, where the effects are different in the anime than in the card game, and I don't know, I just kind of always wish that the effects were the same. I feel like that almost turns off people who are very into the card game, because they're not even really seeing the monster in action that they could use in their own deck. So, the big difference there is Acute Cerebus in the real world would gain 3,000 attack. It just has to have 3 different Tindangle monsters, and I think Tindangle base Gardna, along with 2 different monsters, and it has 3,000 attack. For this one, if it has Tindangle base Gardna and I think another monster, it gains 1,500 for each one, so it still gets to 3,000, and every monster attached to its link, it has 500 attack, but in the real world, it has 600 attack. So, kind of just small differences there that I noticed, the difference between Tindangle Acute Cerebus in the real world and in this show. So Tindangle Acute Cerebus, the monster design was awesome. It looked like it genuinely looked like an upgrade of Tindangle Hound. The summoning was great, where you had the gates open up and the 3 flames burst out. I thought that was one of actually the coolest, I can't even really call it a link summoning, but one of the coolest summonings we've seen so far, because Akira didn't really link summon. He summoned this monster through a trap card, I believe. So again, he didn't really link summon. He was about to be defeated, and he got this monster out on the field. It got 3,000 attack, and because of a trap card he used, this monster cannot be targeted by effects. It can't be destroyed in battle. I'm not even sure if it can be targeted for an attack, but I know it can't be destroyed, and it can't be targeted by its effects. He gets a token onto the field, and Yusaku tries to pull a fast one on him. He uses a card that will inflict piercing damage, so he attacks the token with Firewall to try to inflict 2,500 points of damage, end this duel as quickly as possible. But Akira kind of saw it coming. He had a card that let him not take any battle damage from any Tindangle monsters in the main monster zone, and then he activated, I believe it was a spell card, similar to the trap card that protects Tindangle Cerebus. This particular card lets no monsters in the main monster zone be destroyed or be... Again, I'm not 100% sure if it's not, you can't target it. I'm pretty sure it is, you can't target it, but or maybe you just don't take battle damage, but it can't be destroyed. It's basically, he made his monsters invisible. He made his entire field invincible, not invisible. Excuse me, he made his entire field invincible, so really skillful moves by Akira. He also has a card that if all of the links, even though one of the links is pointing to Yusaku's field, if all of the links have monsters on them, he can sacrifice the Cerebrus and deal 3,000 points of damage to Playmaker, so it kind of makes one of Playmaker's zones, I guess, banished, you can say. It makes it blocked unless Playmaker is going to try to use that effect to his own advantage, which we'll just have to wait and see. But the dueling action was good, and Playmaker draws a card. It's a card that he says will decide my destiny. We don't see what this card is. He sets it, so it's either a trap or a spell card, and Akira says, I guess your destiny is to never know. And again, Akira's ideals, and there were a few people who commented last video and were like, oh my god, Akira needs to pay for this. He's an absolute POS. But Akira's ideals aren't wrong, and you even see it in the preview of this episode where Kusanagi says they both are on the same path of justice, they just have two different beliefs. And Akira opens up, and he has experience with this because when he was Yusaku's age, as we know from last episode, he was struggling with a lot of things. He just lost his parents. He was taking care of his sister Aoi. He was dealing with all these, mobsters and trying to make ends meet and didn't have time to live a regular life, which clearly he shows some signs of regret and anger towards, because he says, don't be like me, don't waste your life, make memories, talk about your future, talk about your goals, make friends, and you'll remember all these times later instead of being on a path of revenge and just focusing on revenge your entire, childhood, your entire teenage life, which is, 16 years old. That is kind of the most important time, or one of the most important times for your growth and development. So you do need those kind of interactions, and Akira is absolutely right, and that's why he wants to take care of it. Akira wants to take care of it. He wants Playmaker to, because obviously he knows what's going on in the incident. He wants Playmaker to forget about this. He wants Playmaker to just kind of live that normal life, almost that life that Akira never got to live, and Playmaker not having any of it, because, and as we learn, he can't live his normal life because this incident, sure, it happened 10 years ago. Sure, it ended 9.5 years ago, but it really never ended. He's still affected to it by this day. This still drives him in his heart, and he can't have those normal interactions. And before Playmaker tells his story, we see Aoi come out of hiding. We see Blue Angel, and Blue Angel tells her brother, look, you need to tell the story. I want to know what happened. I don't know what I'm fighting for anymore. Since Playmaker showed up, since the Knights showed up, everything has just been crazy. And we know Blue Angel has gone through a lot too. She was in that coma, of course, and she got kind of poisoned by Spectre. She lost her entire image in front of everyone watching during her duel against Playmaker when the Knights possessed her. So she wants to know what's going on so that she can maybe gain a new reason to fight. There was also a cool little line in there right before Blue Angel came out where Akira was just like, what you want or the path to your future is right in front of your eyes. And Ignis goes right in front of our eyes, and then Blue Angel runs out. And I don't know if that was, again, like a subtle hint that there might be a very strong relationship, a very strong bond, maybe even more than a bond between Playmaker and Blue Angel, or if that was just kind of a coincidence, but I thought that was really cool. And again, these two have honestly played off each other really, really well so far. I think the relationship between these two have been very strong, especially for two characters who you would say really don't consider each other friends. Maybe Blue Angel considers Playmaker more of a friend than Playmaker does Blue Angel. And we are 19 episodes in. Remember, it took Yusei and Aki a while, too, and I think that was one of the better dynamics we saw in Yu-Gi-Oh!, in any Yu-Gi-Oh! Between a male and a female character. Of course, that's just my opinion. Aki did go downhill towards the latter part of 5Ds. But, so far so good, and if it's not broke, don't fix it, and so if they can keep playing off each other, if they can keep developing through each other, that's awesome, that's perfectly fine, and hopefully we do see that continue to transpire. But Blue Angel gets Playmaker, because Playmaker doesn't want Akira to tell it, he doesn't want someone else to tell his past, to tell the story of his past, and Playmaker, again, This was probably, I'm going to go ahead and say, in my opinion, the darkest backstory. In fact, if I did my top 10 darkest videos, which is still banned, thanks to Nihon Ad Systems, it should be back up next week, but it should be restored next week, I should say. But if I redid that video, this moment might, his past might actually make, once we learn the motives and stuff, because that could change it, but it probably won't change it too much. His past could very well make the top 10 darkest moments in Yu-Gi-Oh history. Him, along with 5 other children, were kidnapped as 6-year-olds. I mean, they were 6 years old when they were kidnapped. They were put in these almost cells, and the cells are weird because they weren't really in a building. Like, the entrance to these cells were literally right on the other side of the wall. So, I mean, they were probably in some, and we saw where the rescue workers were, they were probably in some isolated location in, like, the woods, and it was probably like 12 by 40 foot, because I'd imagine they were very tall. Maybe not 12, maybe it was like 12 by 20 storage crates that they were stored in for half a year. They were in these crates for 6 months, which is just, it is appalling. It's inhumane. And to think, I want to know who did this so badly. And whoever did this, I hope, does get killed off and does pay the price for doing something like this. I mean, at that point, I don't even care what your motives are. It's just completely demonic, completely inhumane. Who did this? It could be Kogami. I kind of hope it's not Kogami, because this is a chance for them to introduce a new villain into the show, maybe the King chess piece of Soltec or something like that. But then again, if it's Kogami, I guess we haven't really seen much of him, so that could already establish him as a real villainous character. I mean, anyone who did this immediately gets that credibility, who ran this program, and the only thing they could do is put on this virtual reality helmet. They would duel each other. Every time they lose, they would receive painful electric shocks, and they would get meals based on whether they dueled well. So if they dueled poorly, there was one time where Yusaku only got a juice box. He didn't even get any food for, I guess, the entire day. And keep in mind, these kids are 6 years old. Just absolutely horrific conditions. The part that got me was when Yusaku talks about how the incident was 9.5 years ago, but it still never ended for him. 10 years later, the incident still has never ended for him. And again, the real moment that got me is when he's going through therapy. He's talking to the teacher. It looked like the teacher that Go Onizuka's manager was talking to during the Go Playmaker duel. I don't know if it's the same character, but if it is, that would actually be a really cool kind of ode there and continuity within the show. But he's talking to this teacher, and he's in his regular class, and he's trying to smile, but he can't get rid of the images, and they were engraved into his heart, as he said, something along those lines. And, you know, he's trying to smile with the other kids, he's trying to laugh, and you see him sitting in the back kind of by himself, and as he's smiling, he almost starts to break down. Then they show him kind of as a teen in his bed just trying to sleep, and he's having these nightmares of the you lose vision, and he has, I guess he probably feels the shock, because PTSD is one of the worst things someone can experience, and so you do feel the same pain that you felt, 7-8 years ago, whenever it was. I know the incident's 10 years ago, but when he was sleeping in his bed, it looked like it was a couple years ago. It didn't look like it was, a couple days ago. It looked like it was his adolescent years, maybe 13, 14, and he wakes up in these painful shocks, and he's kind of picturing himself falling into the abyss, and it's just, it's very, very hard to even watch, to be honest, but that the scenes were done brilliantly. The deposition was incredible and just so powerful. An absolute powerful episode, and the only people that I've seen really comment on this episode so far, I don't really like to talk to people until I do my review, so my opinions don't get swayed, were people on the Crunchyroll comments that were like, I was kind of on the fence about this show. This episode absolutely hooked me. This was the episode we've needed from Yugioh VRAINS. I shouldn't say that, because Yugioh VRAINS has done really well, but I think this was the episode that the people who were kind of on the fence needed to maybe feel more connection to Yusaku's character, because if you don't really like Yusaku's character, it's tough for you to really enjoy the show. I think that's kind of fair to say, because everything is based around Yusaku, but this was a very well done, very serious, very mature, very well executed storyline, and you just feel horrible for him, and how he's going to deal with this going forward is going to be extremely interesting. But guys, I'm probably going to leave off there, because I feel like this is going to be a very long review if I don't. I do have a lot more to say, but I will hold my tongue, because I think I've covered pretty much all I wanted to cover. But, also, it was titled The Hanoi Project, which is why myself and a few others could think it's Kogami. And leave all your thoughts down below. Leave who you think was responsible for this project, because we know Kogami created the Cyberse, and now he's in the Knights of Hanoi. It's also funny, because Playmaker is like, I need to know who the person was 10 years ago that gave me courage, that really helped me live. And I still think it's Revolver. I still think that's probably Kusanagi's brother. I think the person in the flashback, by the way, is still Kusanagi's brother. I saw a couple people say it's Kusanagi, but I still really do believe it's Kusanagi's brother. I guess it's too hard to tell, but every time Playmaker has talked about Kusanagi's brother or someone's family being stolen from him, they always show that image. And why would Kusanagi be in a cellar room like that, to himself? It just doesn't really fit with his character, I think. I think he's a little more social than Playmaker is. Obviously, he's greatly affected by this incident, but I don't think that's how he'd handle it, by sitting, unless that's kind of an analogy and it didn't actually happen, him sitting in a dark corner, kind of coddling himself because of some horrific incident he's been through. But I think that more speaks to Kusanagi's brother, more speaks to Revolver. And he says, I want to save the person if he's still there. But I'm thinking, dude, if the person is still there, which first of all, we know he's not, because we saw all 6 kids, assuming it's another kid, get saved. Of course, he was unconscious when it happened, so he probably didn't even know what was going on. But, there's just still, oh man, it's going to be so great. It's going to be so great these next couple of episodes to continue to find out what is happening with this incident, what is going to happen with this show, what is going to happen with the person. Why was this even a thing? Why are they training these 6-year-old kids to be dual soldiers and almost killing them and forcing them to barely eat and kidnapping them when they're 6 years old, taking them away from their families and their lives? Absolutely horrific. And it is certainly going to be an interesting next few episodes. But guys, I am going to cut myself off there. I don't want to keep you for an hour. So I hope you enjoyed my review of episode 19. Probably my favorite episode so far. 18 was up there, but 19 just an incredible episode. So guys, let me know all your thoughts down below. I really do hope you enjoyed the review. As always, thank you for watching. As always, thank you for the support. And I will talk to you down below. Have an amazing day.